American Military University proudly presents Mission San Diego Military, produced by the San Diego Military Advisory Council and Cloudcast Media. San Diego is America's finest military city. From the Marines and Navy to the Coast Guard and Naval Special Warfare, San Diego is a proud military town. Mission San Diego Military will help you better understand how the San Diego military leads, innovates, and cares for community and country. Mission San Diego Military, co-hosted by the CEO of the San Diego Military Advisory Council, retired Rear Admiral David Boone, and Drew Schlossberg with Cloudcast Media, begins right now.
I'm Drew Schlossberg of Cloudcast Media and co-host of Mission San Diego Military, a podcast series graciously and generously sponsored by American Military University, a leader in educating our military and their families since 1993. My co-host is David Boone, President and CEO of the San Diego Military Advisory Council, better known as SDMAC. David is a retired Navy Rear Admiral, and the Mission San Diego Military Podcast is produced by Cloudcast Media. You want to do the intros and introduce our guest?
Yeah, absolutely. Great to be back on with you, Drew, as always.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you. We have a great show set up today with Captain Henry Kim. And Henry's had assignments all over the world. First and foremost, he's a SWO, Surface Warfare Officer, otherwise known as ship driver, right? But his experience is much broader than merely driving ships. He's commanded at all levels and has worked in the Pacific region, the Asia-Pacific region, as well as CENTCOM, where in the Middle East. He has graduate degrees from Naval Postgraduate School. He has been to the Harvard University, but he also is a Korean American officer. I'm a Japanese American, and he studied both Korean and Japanese. Nihongo hanashimasu ka?
Skoshi hanashimashou.
So we could do the whole
I'll just
whole
nod.
thing
How about that?
in Japanese, right?
I think we should do that, and we'll have subtitles. What do you think about that?
But I'll have him talk to it, but his language and cultural skills overlapped into his professional duties working with both the Japanese and Korean navies, which was shows some foresight by the Navy. Usually, if you're a Japanese American and you ask for duty associated with the Japanese Navy, they'll send you to Iowa or somewhere.
That's right.
You know, it has nothing to do with it. But in this case, I think it worked out.
It all worked out.
So I'm very excited to introduce Captain Henry Kim as our guest today on our podcast.
Yeah, Commodore Amphibious Squadron 5. Good to see you, Hank.
Great. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
We're honored to have you. When did you enlist in the military?
I joined as a commissioned officer in 1996.
1996.
So just a few years ago.
Listen, it's just years and all that business.
Yeah.
What inspired you?
Growing up in the 90s in a Korean American community, we didn't have a lot of military leaders, a lot of military influence. So I was inspired, as was many, and I'm sure this will elicit a smile from some of my compatriots. I was inspired by Top Gun.
Interesting.
Who wouldn't want to fly jets, ride a motorcycle with no helmet, and sing to girls at bars? That was my inspiration. So that got me in the door with some interest. I started getting pamphlets and information and literature regarding military service. And I had a couple of high school friends who are also interested. That helped me develop some moral courage in order to complete the application. And then looking at the different options, one was the Naval Academy. But again, I didn't have a lot of Korean American people who had experience in the military to lean on. And so I had this misconception that if you went to the Naval Academy, you were in the military for life. And at the time, I didn't know if I wanted to make such a big commitment. And the ROTC literature started to come in. And for some reason, I started reading that in a little bit more detail. And that had the option of, 4-year service, which, the Naval Academy is only 5 years. It's only a year different, but I didn't really pay attention. And that's what initially got me interested.
Right, but you had no family background there. Are any of your parents, grandparents, were they in the military?
Military service is compulsory in Korea, even to this day. My father served in the Korean Air Force for the compulsory 3 years at the time. This was in the 1950s.
Right.
So he had some service in the military, and that was actually, as we had discussed partly before the show started, there was a slightly negative influence in my path and my journey into the military, because in the Korean culture, military service back then wasn't highly regarded.
Right,
it was considered partly as a thief of life, because the military or the government stole about 2 years of your youth serving in the military. And of course, as many of our listeners know, and as you know, North and South Korea are technically still at war. It's just an armistice.
Right.
So the military ethos, the warfighter mindset is palpable. It's very tangible in the Korean military, and hence why my parents were a little reluctant that I had chosen this career path. But as we'll get into, they've since changed their mind.
Yeah. What's the mission of the squadron?
Amphibious Squadron 5 is a team. We team up with our Marine Corps brothers and sisters, and I think what could be arguably the epitome of joint warfare. We come together as a Amphibious Ready Group / MU, Marine Expeditionary Unit. We composite together in a 3-ship Amphibious Ready Group, and I'll refer to that as an ARG. And we conduct a variety of missions in the maritime domain, and I'll touch on a few. But forward presence, sea control, humanitarian assistance, and disaster relief are but a couple of the mission sets that the Marine Corps and the Navy bring to the international and maritime domain.
Great. David?
This capability is enormous as part of our national security strategy. As he mentioned, forward presence, humanitarian relief, and in the more recent past, there are clear examples. If you go to the Fukushima disaster in Japan with the nuclear power plants, or before that, the earthquake and in the Southeast Asia area that unleashed tidal waves. It changes the dynamic in a region when we can bring to bear the logistics and support capability that Henry's team has the capability to support. So it's a really big deal, and what he and his team do to make a difference in the world.
Yeah, Hank, we were talking beforehand about the Pacific Partnership and so forth on the U.S., the Mercy, which you're on. But to David's point, that is a totally different view of imagine other parts of the world have of the U.S. and the military when you're doing those things. Talk about that.
So I had the great privilege and honor in 2022 to command this mission called Pacific Partnership. And Admiral, as you mentioned, we had the tsunami and the earthquake that followed in 2006 in Indonesia. USNS Mercy, the hospital ship, was one of the ships to respond. And henceforth, the United States annually has continued the largest and longest running humanitarian assistance and disaster relief mission in the world. This mission set really is so different from everything I'm used to as a surface warfare officer. Normally, we're looking at putting warheads on foreheads, as we say in Navy parlance. But in this particular case, we were bringing health support. We were bringing physicians. We were bringing public health administration to a region that desperately needed those services. And the amount of welcome we received was really incredible. The amount of influence and access that we had in the humanitarian assistance and disaster relief mission was incredible. And it does help to build bridges. We have these Venn diagrams that we look at. And, opposing governments, we'd love to have as much overlap as possible to, have cooperation, peace, international order. But a lot of times in our current state, some of those Venn diagrams diverge. But humanitarian and disaster relief, generally speaking, is something that everybody can get their arms around. And for example, we were allowed access into Vietnam, where previous carrier strike groups, we really had a hard time getting our ships into there. And interacting with countries in that region is very important. So we got to do those missions. One thing that I found really interesting about this mission, because along with warheads and foreheads, is about statistics and numbers, right? Because you have to have metrics in order to measure your success. I did operations research as a background in my master's degree and statistics, so numbers really matter. And I was talking to my physicians. We're coming up with our game plan for our engagement in Southeast Asia. And we were looking at the number of surgeries that were planned, the number of hospital visits and patients we were going to see. And to me, the number seemed rather low. And I looked at the syllabus and the schedule of events. There were a lot of training events with nurses and doctors. And I thought those were important too, but why not go and do some of these advanced surgeries? And I learned so much about our medical capability and what we can bring to the field. And what my medical professionals told me was, yes, Commodore, we can go in. We could probably do a couple hundred surgeries. Yes, we can go and see a few thousand patients. We could probably bring them onto the ship. What we would like to do is something that might be tenfold more impactful. And I go, what do you mean? We would maybe do a few surgeries, but we would bring the local doctors in and train them.
Absolutely.
We might see a few patients, but we would bring the local nurses and health professionals in and we would train them. And this was more critical because of the time frame. We were just reintroducing Pacific Partnership after COVID. So many of these professionals in the local communities had lost their certification or they had expired because nobody was doing anything during COVID. And we went in and we were able to recertify thousands of medical professionals. We had one place in Solomon Islands where we visited, and the doctor there had a laparoscopic machine, which I won't go into the details, but it's a pretty amazing piece of equipment. And, again, I was like, well, how many surgeries are we going to do with this? He said, maybe 3. I said, 3? That seems so few. There's hundreds of people waiting. We're going to do 3 side by side with this doctor. And when we leave, he will be able to do not hundreds, but thousands for the next few years. And that's what we were able to accomplish with Pacific Partnership.
So a question, you don't always get to choose when you do a humanitarian event.
Right.
Pacific Partnership, of course, is well planned out in advance, but when you respond to disasters are on their own timeline. And sometimes you're deployed for a different purpose. Right? So how do you pivot? How do you pivot from an intended mission, whatever that mission is, usually geared more toward combat ops, pivot to humanitarian ops? It not only takes a different training cycle, but a different mindset, right? So talk to the leadership of you and your leadership team, how you need to bring about a totally different operation.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for that question. I think we're blessed and fortunate in the fact that we, as an amphibious ready group, receive fundamental training in humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. In fact, as part of our workup, we have a fleet surgical team, or a FST, that's embedded to the amphibious squadron, bringing medical professionals. And we train the entire ARG on how to respond to disaster relief and humanitarian assistance. I recently went to a studio much like this, but about 10 times larger, because they're trying to reenact a medical operating room on board an amphibious ship, assault ship. They had hired actors. Some of them were actual amputees, wearing bodysuits, hemorrhaging blood, screaming. The reality of it all was quite incredible, adding to the anxiety, the tension, the fast-paced, heart-racing atmosphere. And I think it's training like that provides us the fundamental skills, the reps and sets, the motor response, in order for us to pivot from something that's combat, warheads on foreheads oriented, towards humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. Not only that, but just learning fundamental trauma and life-saving skills on board the ship is part and parcel with reporting on board. Damage control and medical training go hand in hand in everything we do as a daily breathing and living activity for us.
Yeah, we're chatting with Captain Hank Kim. He's the Commodore Amphibious Squadron 5. I'm Drew Schlossberg with Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of our Mission San Diego Military podcast series, sponsored by American Military University, leader in educating our military and their families since 1993, joined by my co-host, David Boone. He's the president and CEO of the San Diego Military Advisory Council. Talk a little bit about the Expeditionary Advanced Base Operations. What's that all about?
Okay, well, thank you for that question. The Marine Corps and the Navy, as I mentioned earlier, we are partners as we enter this new century. And as many of you may be aware, we were in the War on Terror, the Navy and the Marine Corps, which was mostly land-based. And the Marine Corps had tool sets and had training that were geared towards that mission set. We have since moved away from that mission set, and we are focused more on a maritime domain and looking at adversaries out on the high seas, in the air above the high seas, and below. The Marine Corps, being our partners step by step, are also pivoting towards maritime warfare. And the EAB, the Expeditionary Advanced Base, the O being the operations, is one of the methodologies that the Marine Corps is looking at in order to engage in consequential warfare, impactful warfare in the maritime domain. These are different from large, persistent, immobile bases, which are, frankly, very difficult to defend and have a lot of vulnerabilities. We see our adversaries with weapon systems that go out not only a few tens of miles, not only a few hundreds of miles, but out to a few thousand miles. So how do you operate and persist in the weapons engagement zone, as we call it, the WEZ? Well, one way we are tackling this as a Marine Corps and Navy team is through the incorporation and development of expeditionary advanced bases. Small, agile capabilities that are mobile. They are semi-persistent. If they sense a vulnerability, then they can deconstruct and then move again and be mobile. They have an ability to sense, provide that information to the network and to the Navy. And vice versa, they have an ability now to engage in the maritime domain. Recently, the Marines have capabilities called HIMARS, which is the high altitude rockets. And then they also have Nemesis, which is the Navy Marine Corps expeditionary ship interdiction system, but basically missiles on wheels. And now we, the Navy, out in the maritime domain, can sense the environment. We ourselves are also vulnerable, but what we could do is sense quietly, pass that information quietly to these EABs, and then have the Marines conduct the surface-to-surface engagement, then melt away into the jungle or into the environment, and then reappear at a later time. So that's kind of the essence of what we're looking at for
So
EABs.
if you think big picture, let's talk about the Western Pacific. We have bases. We have a number of bases in Japan, Korea,
Philippines,
Guam, and we have places that aren't bases. They're on foreign lands,
Right.
but we have worked up country-to-country agreements where we have access rights. Now, sometimes they limit what we can do, but we have bases and places, and now expeditionary bases to add to that portfolio to give us more flexibility, more options from which to operate.
100%. It adds complexity to the terrain for the enemy as well.
Yeah, and is it all part of? We've talked about the Pacific pivot for it seems like
That's right. I remember during the presidential administration of Barack Obama,
Right.
was, when we started moving towards about 70% into the Pacific.
Right. Exactly. Talk about the USMC Air Wing Lightning Carrier concept. What's that all about?
Oh, so one of the innovations that the Amphibious Ready Group is looking at is putting more of our fifth generation fighter aircraft on board an ARG, an Amphibious Ready Group. The traditional loadout is about 6. The LHA are newer amphibious assault vessels can carry maybe 8 F-35s. What the Lightning Carrier demonstration has given us some flexibility to do is to expand that number pretty significantly. Fifth generation fighters have incredible sensing capability and incredible offensive capability as well. And if we could increase that number a little bit more on an Amphibious Ready Group, that would definitely provide more capability to the fleet at large. And let me couch it this way. And this is no offense to the AV-8 Harriers. Those were amazing aircraft, but just a previous generation. But when prior to the F-35s, when the ARGs transited and deployed, most of the time, again, because of the situation and the era we were in, we were transporting Marines and the MU, the Marine Expeditionary Unit, from San Diego. I'll just give some specificity here, from San Diego to the Middle East. We were largely ignored by our adversaries in the Pacific. There weren't a whole lot of capability that we were bringing to the table. Now we have F-35s. Just about all of our amphibs, even the ones built in the 90s. Essex was commissioned in 92. That's my flagship, is now F-35 capable. I'll tell you, there's nobody in the Pacific who will ignore us. We garner a lot of attention. And so with 6, we have some capability. Boy, Drew, if we had 20 of those on there, that would definitely garner a lot of attention and bring a lot of capability to the fleet commander out there.
What makes adversaries really nervous is they're virtually undetectable. And as compared to previous
Correct.
Iterations,
iterations. So not only do they have capability, but the bad guys don't know where they are. And so that makes them really nervous.
My first PCS, when I came back to stateside, we were so stressed out. Everything was just thrown at us. And I wish I could just go back and tell past me, like, hey, it's going to be fine. Go with the flow.
Talk about, does your squadron deal at all with the unmanned air systems at all, UASs? Not necessarily.
We are experimenting a lot with UASs, especially the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Just recently, the Marines have inaugurated a new program called FPV, First Person View Drone Program, and their new lieutenants who go through the infantry course are now getting indoctrinated and certified in operating these UAVs. Our current capabilities are focused around counter UAVs or UASs. We have systems. One system is called the Drake that allows us to interrupt the communication path between the UAV and the ground station or the operator. But we are definitely moving more towards unmanned systems, and it's more prevalent. In fact, you'll see some support ships that support the ARG, such as expeditionary sea bases, come standard as a package with Scan Eagle is one of the programs that we use on board those ships that give us great, literally bird's eye view for several dozen miles around the battle group. And in this age of where we think, well, electronics, that'll be sufficient. Isn't that enough to help us find a target? Yes. EOIR, however, always really puts the positive in positive identification because you can see it. And I think what many people forget, and sometimes even in my own career field, we sometimes tend to forget, we need to be accurate in our battle damage assessment. We need to be able to say that mission, that strike was effective and we achieved the effect that we intended. How do you do that through electronics? They may not be emitting anything. Does that mean that we successfully achieved a mobility kill or a mission kill? Well, if we have UAVs or unmanned systems to help put EOIR, electro-optical or infrared energy down there and see for ourselves, and we can help with that battle damage assessment part as well.
You know, in a previous episode, we had my innovation community here. We're trying to figure out ways to better dovetail the private sector with the defense side to speed up the innovation cycle. And to Hank's point, it's not only where those UASs are going in the air, on the surface, underwater, but it's also the number of pixels per square area, right? If in order to his point of getting better BDA, battle damage assessment, if the object is blurry, it's kind of hard. You're guessing too much, right? So we're getting better and better quality on the number of pixels per square centimeter, as opposed to what used to be per square meter. So the technology continues to improve.
Advance. And the other great thing, it's great, I guess, from my perspective when I'm using it. It's not so great when there's an adversary UAV out there, but they are so hard to detect. Prior to the UAS, UAV era, we have very sensitive radars, and we would filter slow-moving objects out because it was considered clutter. And now you have these slow-moving objects everywhere. And when you try to bring them back in and you reduce those filters, boy, you get a lot of clutter out there. And now you're trying to pick out what is actually UAV or what is a cloud or what is a bird. So again, from the aspect of I'm the user, that's great because it really confounds the enemy. I can have a sensor overhead fairly close, And I could be confident that maybe that ship probably doesn't see that asset overhead. But vice versa, I'm having those challenges. What I also am very encouraged about these days for the U.S. Navy is that we're trying to leverage AI. And instead of having an operator trying to distill this information and go, okay, well, is this a UAV, or is this a bird, or is this a cloud? Now, with the advent of AI, with really high fidelity and accuracy, we're getting over those challenges pretty quickly.
So let me ask a question, because I get asked this all the time about AI. If we make a mistake in a kinetic environment where we target the wrong thing, whether it's a commercial airliner or a community, AI might be 98% good.
Right.
But the one mistake you make could be very fatal. Do you think about the person in the decision loop to ensure, and I think it's important our audience understand how we think about using AI to speed the process up, but ensure there's a person in the loop at the right place?
Right. So, I'm not at the policy level for incorporating AI into our weapon systems. I'm at the user end, but from the user end, the communication is very clear that there will always be a human in the loop, especially for any kinetic operations. And the support that AI brings is to help a human make that decision, but never will a kinetic decision be automated.
Yeah, it makes sense. We're chatting with Captain Hank Kim, Commodore of Amphibious Squadron 5. I'm Bruce Schlossberg of Cloudcast Media, and co-host with David Boone of Mission San Diego Military Podcast Series, brought to you by American Military University, a leader in educating our military and their families. Since 1993, we were talking about all the unbelievable community outreach that you folks do. And I see, you certainly have some, collaboration with Feeding San Diego and so forth. That was a former guest who was on the show and part of David's emergency access group or whatever. Is that right?
Emergency Action Group.
Sorry, Action
EAG.
EAG on this.
Yeah.
Talk about what you folks do with Feeding San Diego.
So Feeding San Diego is one of a number of volunteer organizations that my team really tries to get involved with. We recently returned, I say recently, it's all relative. We returned from deployment at the end of 2024. So we've gone through a whole year cycle now. And we're not looking to deploy again until about the 2028 timeframe. We are not resting on our laurels, and a lot of that time is spent focused on military warfare and sharpening our sword. But being a part of the community is very important. Feeding San Diego has been a go-to staple volunteer opportunity for Fibron 5. That, along with helping some disabled Americans here in the local community, providing companionship and helping restore some of their facilities, has been something that we cherish very dearly. And I encourage all of my sailors to go for that volunteer service medal. And I had several people earn it wholeheartedly, and has opened up the eyes of a new generation, I think, to what it means for contribution back to the community. But it's also an opportunity for the military and the community to interact, because the community sees that we are a large presence here in San Diego. And when we wear our uniform or we wear our organizational clothing out there, they know that we defend our country in many ways, but we also support our communities in many ways.
Yeah, as David has heard me say probably way too many times, and since I've been involved with this show literally since 2008, when Larry Blumberg was running SD Mac, You folks served twice, 3 times, 5 times, obviously doing your primary job, protecting us, abroad on our soil, and then working with groups like Feeding San Diego or SDMAC or down the road on this. But we have a big birthday coming up. Are you folks involved in that 250th birthday of the Navy?
We are involved in that, and I had the great honor and privilege of having one of my ships recently for the amphibious demonstration a couple of months ago also participate in that event, and it was majestic. Getting our hovercrafts out there in a line and storming the beach is always quite a sight to see. And they have gas turbine engines. They're jet engines that you would find on an aircraft. So they push a lot of energy, especially close to the water. So that's very, very impressive. And then we also had the Marine Air Wing and the air components of the Marine Corps do their demonstration along with the F-35s and the MV-22s and the most powerful helicopters in our military, the CH-53 Sea Stallions as well. So it was a lot of fun to go show off the Marine Corps Navy team and our might.
I wanted to go back a little bit. In your career experience, you had a chance to work closely with both the Japanese and Korean navies.
Yes, sir.
And I think it would be helpful for our audience to hear what that was like, what their perception of the U.S. Navy is, and to what degree are they reliable military allies in today's age, where the Western Pacific is a location of conflict, potentially. Certainly, politically, there are a lot of challenges in the South China Sea and that region of the neighborhood. Yes, can you capture for our audience what that's like?
Absolutely. I had the great honor and privilege to serve as Chief of Staff, Naval Forces Korea. And so I was really in the thick of things. This was 2016 to 2018. And during that time, I think Kim Jong-un, I think he's since surpassed his record, but up to that point, set a new record of launching ballistic missiles or testing ballistic missiles during those 2 years I was there. Part and parcel with the response and the defense of the region was our alliance with not only South Korea, where I was stationed, but Japan as well. Well, why is Japan concerned about all of this? North Korea was launching these ballistic missiles over Japan.
Right.
North Korea is kind of bottled in there with other land masses, and they had to fly over something. And instead of flying over China or Russia, they flew over Japan, and they were trying to land in the ocean as well. So our cooperation with Korea, for example, I'll start with them because of proximity, was key in providing flexible deterrent options, or FDOs, as we call them. We wanted to show the North Koreans that we knew well before they launched. We knew when they launched, and after they launched, we were ready for contingencies. And so we would do a flexible deterrent option. We had several that we had played out. One was also firing munitions, not at the country, but out into the water to let them know we can change the direction of these munitions anytime we want. And as soon as you fire, we can fire within seconds. So we demonstrated that. We also demonstrated some of our air capability soon after the missiles were fired. Some of the response options we had to adjust a little bit, and obviously for security reasons, there's some details I can't go into, but some of the adjustments were due to the fact that we got no response from the North Koreans, and we were scratching our head, and we were thinking, well, do they not really care? Or they're not afraid, or they weren't impressed? And it turns out they didn't see what we were doing because we overestimated their capability. So sometimes we had to move a little bit closer or do things a little bit louder in order for them see. I'm here.
Just in case you didn't see it.
That's right.
Right. Wow.
It was impressive, but let's just do it a little closer.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, with the Japanese Maritime Defense Force, I had great experiences working with them since I was an ensign, because I've been stationed in the Pacific since I was commissioned. And I'll give you one key example of how important they are. There are many times when a carrier strike group, our key chess player out in the maritime chessboard, there are many times where we are augmented and supported by the JMSDF destroyers and their squadrons. We would not be able to complete many of our missions if it wasn't for the support of the JMSDF. And what am I talking about? We have so many activities, so many mission sets in the Pacific, 7th Fleet, that a lot of times we want to pull off one of our destroyers to go meet that need, but they have to defend the carrier strike group. Well, here comes JMSDF. They fill that spot in the carrier strike group and allow us the flexibility for our U.S. destroyers to go meet other mission sets. That's common, that's routine, it's valuable, it's impactful, and we're grateful for it. And in fact, during my time in Korea, in Busan, we had 3 carrier strike groups at one point. It was historic having that there. And getting the photo op, though, was a challenge. Despite all of these great bilateral relationships, there's a rough history between Korea and Japan, from the occupation and then World War II. I think at the military level, the professional level, that's all bygones. When I see a Korean ROC warship and a Japanese warship come up together for some joint exercise and maneuvers, boy, it's nothing but one team, one fight. But, there's also political aspects of it that the nations are working through right now. I think there's been lots of improvements. Recently, there's been information sharing improvements and cooperation and agreements between the 2 countries that are improving relations. But it's still there. One mark that it left, it was during the 3 carrier operation. We couldn't get the 3 sides, the United States, the Japanese Navy, and the Korean Navy, to get into one photo. It was That's tough. Funny. And in the end, we decided 3 carrier strike groups with the Koreans will take one photo there. That's pretty impressive. And then we'll take another one with JMSDF, and that was impressive too. Because we brought the preponderance of the toys. But it's still there, and I think it's important for people who understand the culture to continue to interact with those 2 countries. I think it really does help build bridges and helps understanding.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
So I want to bring up a really important point. Hank was talking about operations in 2016 when North Korea launched missiles over Japan.
Right.
Up to that point, the Japanese have a constitution up to that point that said they cannot respond unless Japanese people or property was attacked, right? But now these missiles were being launched over Japan and destination unknown in the opening salvo, right? It could be, now they have the reach to Guam.
Right.
And under President Abe, he changed the interpretation of the Constitution. By the way, the Constitution was written by the United States for Japan.
Right.
Right. But President Abe changed the interpretation such that if an attack on Japan or its allies, they could respond. And so that period of time in history changed how Japan would respond to, and we entered an era of ballistic missiles that had a much further range than previously. So it had to change how militaries operate and think about those 100%. Kinds of operations.
Yeah, there's no question about it. Hank, one of the things we always like to ask on our podcast here is what can our civilian audience do to continue to support what you folks are doing, in the military in general. Sure. Obviously, SDMAC is just absolutely at the pinnacle of this and trying to make the connection in this area. What can we do?
Well, one aspect where I've been really grateful and I've been trying to interact with industry more is at these conferences, Surface Navy Association Conference, AFCEA West. Obviously, we have national going on in D.C. All of those really help the warfighter see what's out there in terms of innovation. There was a time where the majority of innovation occurred in the DoD. That is not the time anymore. We still innovate a lot, and I'm really inspired and awestruck by some of the things we come up with. But when I go out to industry, boy, it is light speed. And so I do appreciate industry coming up, being proactive, and engaging with the military warfighter. And I would add, I do appreciate the patience because there is a bureaucracy. Everybody understands it. We recognize it. The bureaucracy there has a purpose. I completely understand there's ethics rules that we need to follow and obey and recognize. But there needs to be some urgency and speed, and the continued engagement by industry community leaders here to be a partner with the Navy. I'll just speak to my particular community. To be a partner with the Navy and show us what is in the realm of possible. Our minds are blown. So please continue to engage with us, show us what you have. I know from our side, and I'll say this to the industry leaders out there, as a senior middle manager, I've heard and I've seen people working very hard to reduce these barriers, to speed up the acquisition cycle, to understand and better engage with industry. So I'm excited for that. I've had my own experience and taste of that cooperation as Fibron 5 and as Fibron 3. Going into RIMPAC, which is one of our big future mission sets for Fibron 5, we've been heavily involved with the experimentation working group and looking at what unmanned systems we can bring to our large real estate on an ARG, an amphibious ready group, so that we can increase the lethality and our ability to sense and shoot within our sphere. So
that's a good response. David, any final comments?
It's great to have Captain Kim on today and to talk about the capabilities of Fibron 5. He's also, as part of our community engagement, we're going to have lunch aboard the Japanese ship Chokai with their skipper, Captain Kim, and myself. So that, I think, is next Monday.
Next Monday on the 19th.
Yeah.
So Essex, my flagship, is the sister ship for Chokai. So this is a great opportunity for us to engage our
Captain
partners.
Tanaka, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we're going to have lunch aboard
That's
the
exciting.
Japanese ship. So thank you, Drew. It's been a great episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Captain Hank Kim, just can't thank you enough. The content you provided our listeners is very, very cool. Looking forward to seeing you in about a week and a half at the SDMAC breakfast, and just wishing you and, of course, your crew and equally important, your family, nothing but great success.
Thank you very
moving
much.
forward.
It's my honor.
My pleasure. Captain Hank Kim, Commodore Amphibious Squadron 5. I'm Drew Schlossberg of Cloudcast Media with my co-host David Boone. You've been listening to another edition of Mission San Diego Military, brought to you by American Military University, a leader in educating our military and their families since 1993. And to our listeners, we hope you enjoyed the interview.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Mission San Diego Military, presented by American Military University, an educational leader for active duty military, veterans, and their families. Mission San Diego Military is produced by the San Diego Military Advisory Council in partnership with Cloudcast Media, the national leader in local podcasting. We're sure you learned quite a bit about why San Diego is America's finest military city. Please like, subscribe, and share the show.
Cloudcast Media.